Hello and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. How are you doing? It's the end of October. It's November, like really soon, which is my birthday month. And also, I think we can all say it's the official start of Christmas. I'm here to tell you about all the books that I've read in the month of October. 15 books I read in the month of October, which is a lot. A real lot. But I'm going to go through the stats and then we're going to talk about the books. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books. Let me know what you guys have been reading in October. And let's go with the screen record every time I get so frightened. Now! So, if we just scroll down here. So yeah, 15 books I've read in the month of October, which was 3,153 pages, and also 44.87 hours worth of reading. I just wish they did that in hours and minutes, I really do. The average time it took me to finish a book, 5 days, pretty good. And it looks like my top 3 moods that I was reading were adventurous, mysterious and tense. And I guess that does make sense because it's October. I've been reading a lot of books about witches. I've been doing a whole witchy reading project over on Instagram. So yeah, that makes sense. Oh, and then the pace. I find pace irrelevant. Because this is all subjective. So what might be a slow-paced book to me or a fast-paced book to me is something else for somebody else. So let's ignore that. Page numbers. So, I mean, as always, 500 plus books was 10%. 500 plus page books, 10%. Less than 300 pages, 30%. 300 to 499, 60%. Audiobook length, all of them were in the sort of middling range. Most of them were in the middling range of 8 hours to 15 hours, 59 minutes. Maybe this is all irrelevant as well. Less than 8 hours. This is the real stat that I'm into. So 93% of what I've read this month has been fiction and 7% non-fiction. Now there is one book I'm literally about to finish. I've got like 10 pages left. I'm going to finish it and take it back to the library once I've finished recording this. But overall, my fiction to non-fiction rate has not been what I wanted it to be this year. I think I'm on something like 19% non-fiction and whatever the equivalent of that is, 81% fiction. And I don't think I'll ever get to, I don't think I'll ever get to 50%, 50-50 for fiction, non-fiction, but it would be nice to be sort of maybe nearer 40-60, 40% non-fiction, 60% fiction. And I really like reading non-fiction. I've just reserved a few books, non-fiction books from the library, so we shall see. Genre, top 3 genres, fantasy, middle grade and mystery. Like I said, I've been reading a lot of witchy, Halloweeny books, so that is also what I thought it would be. 53% of the books I've read this month have been in print, 33% in audio, and 13% in digital. And then these are the star ratings, so anything from a 2-star up to a 5-star. And then that's my sort of reading, how it's been. You'll see that I'm recording this before the end. That can stop. Bye. Yeah. So let's start at the very beginning, which is the beginning of October. And I was very ill at the end of September, which leached into October. So a few of the books that I read, I didn't even review on Instagram. I review all books that I read on Instagram. And I didn't even review them because a lot of the time I was sort of going through the motions of reading, because reading is something I do. Even when I was sick and not really taking anything in, I was like, well, I'll pick up my book because that's what I do before I go to bed. If I'm laying in bed, I'll read. That's what I normally do. I was having a lot of baths to keep myself occupied. I'll read in the bath. So there are books that I read at the beginning of the month that have sort of escaped me a little bit. The books, so I'm going to put these two together because I've started reading the Slow Horses series, the Slough House series by Mick Herron. The first book is called Slow Horses, the second book is called Dead Lions. I'd wanted to read these for a really long time. We'd watched the TV series on Apple TV, which stars Gary Oldman as, oh my god, I always forget his name. Jackson Lamb and Jack Lowden as River Cartwright, amongst a whole host of other supporting cast. And we very much enjoyed the series. It's on Apple TV. They're up to series 5 now. We started watching series 5 and I was like, let's stop this now. I want to read the books. So I've got the books out from the library. Do you know what? For books that were published, I mean, Slow Horses was published in 2010, so it's 15 years old. It had something like 16 reservations on it, so it took a while to get it. And then I've been reading the books and then watching the series alongside and being like to David, it's actually slightly different in the book. Oh, in the book, it's not the mum that drives the plane into London, it's the daughter. So I've been that person. But I am thoroughly enjoying the setup of reading a book alongside watching the TV series. Like, I've been really having a good time doing that. So would highly recommend this. And I'm about to go to the library, like I said, and I'm going to be picking up the third one of that. So I'll be doing that with season 3. What shall happen when I get to the books ahead of the series? I'll be unbearable. So yeah, so that's 2 of the books I read this month. And then I'll lump these 2 in together as well. So I read The Illustrated Mum by Jacqueline Wilson. Jackson Lamb, he didn't write that. Jacqueline Wilson, which was published in 1999. And then this year, Jacqueline Wilson has brought out the second book in this series, which is now an adult follow-on called Picture Imperfect. Now, on reading The Illustrated Mum, which is a book that I had read before when I was a child, maybe not when it first came out, but like definitely as a child, I remembered being entertained by this, as I always am by Jacqueline Wilson books, and sort of learning things about other people's lives that necessarily I have life experiences I haven't experienced. When I read this again, it felt really cruel and sad, and I don't remember feeling like that. And I feel like that a little bit more when I read Jacqueline Wilson books. Not that they're not wonderful, sort of comforting books, which is a weird thing to say for a book that makes me feel sad, but like, she really does sort of hammer home social issues to a child audience. So when I came to the adult book of this, Picture Imperfect, those issues were still being hammered home. What I will say, because I've read 2 of these books now, whereby this is a follow-on from Jacqueline Wilson, like a character she's written as a child and then she's picked up with them as an adult, they haven't changed all that much by the time they get to adulthood. And I look at myself, I mean, maybe my mother would tell me differently, but I look at myself and think, God, I contain multitudes now compared to what I was like as a child. Like, things are very cut and dry for me as a child. Happy, sad, want food, don't want food, want to go to play, want to stay in and read. Those things seem to have translated into how the adults are presented in this book, Picture Imperfect, and also in Think Again, which was the follow-on from the Girls in Love series. So yeah, they're still enjoyable to read and comforting, and I can probably put my hand on my heart and say any sort of follow-on to a Jacqueline Wilson book, like an adult follow-on to a Jacqueline Wilson book, I would probably read it. But yeah, I feel like they are flawed. So I will say that, she says, as a non-writer. These books are flawed. But yeah, I definitely felt like there's not much development, like personality-wise, character development. That's what they asked me on Storygraph, has there been much character development? And for those 2 books, no. The characters are exactly the same. The next book I read was Katabasis. God, it's so heavy every time, I can't believe it. So this is by R.F. Kuang. I started reading this while I was away on holiday. That's where I caught my cruise plague. And then when I got back, I finished it. I really did not enjoy this at all. It felt, and I wonder if maybe I hadn't been in such a bad place, I maybe would have felt a bit better. Look at that lovely light coming in it and glaring off of there. This just felt too clever for me and too like out of my reach, that I couldn't even get my head around, like, I would say 80% of the ideas that are floated in this book. The bits I did enjoy were the bits, so we're following 2 students whose mentor and teacher, professor, has died, and they've gone into hell to try and bring him back so that they can complete their studies. The 2 students, the bits I did enjoy were hearing about them and their studies prior to the death of this professor and how they existed sort of around each other. And I sort of enjoyed the academic campus novel feel of that, but there's so much philosophy and just stuff in here that just does not interest me. And like I said, like, it was just so out of my reach that I couldn't even begin to imagine the ideas. And again, it might have been because I felt poorly, but yeah, it was just not for me. It just felt really, really clever and a bit smug, which is a super big shame, because Babel and Yellowface are 2 of my favourite books ever. But I've read 2 books by R.F. Kuang this year and hated both of them. So I hated this and I hated The Poppy War as well. So, but loved those 2. So ups and downs, isn't it? Ups and downs. But I really haven't heard all that much about this at all. I was talking to I was at a friend's house recently playing board games, and his son's partner was there, and she was saying she'd read this as well. And that's literally the only person I've heard really talking about it. But yeah, I didn't enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to getting rid of it, to be honest, because every time I look at it, it reminds me of feeling ill, and it reminds me of being a bit stupid. There we go. Then I listened to an audiobook. I listened to Adam Kay's latest book, which is a fiction book. He hasn't written fiction before, and this was a murder mystery called A Particularly Nasty Case. And I listened to this, and I started listening to this again. I was ill at the time of listening to it, so she was probably grumpy, but I was listening to it thinking, oh yeah, this feels like this is going to hurt. This has got the same sort of like tiredness from the narrator as This Is Going to Hurt, which is a non-fiction book by Adam Kay about his time as a junior doctor. And I was really into it, but quite quickly, and again, this might be because I was unwell, I kept losing the thread of where it was supposed to be going. I found it interesting. I learned a lot about bipolar. The protagonist that we're following, he's a doctor, and he's got bipolar, and I learned a lot about that. But yeah, some of it felt a bit daft, but some of it did really feel like when I used to work for the NHS. So yeah, it was interesting, but I didn't love it as much as I thought I was going to love it when I first started listening. Then, as I said, I've been reading some witchy books this month because I've been doing a witchy reading project over on Instagram. Are you on Instagram? Do you want to follow me over on Instagram? There's lots of bookish stuff over there as well. I'm called @Lauren and the Books, the same thing as this, the same title as this here channel. I've gone all funny because my battery's flashing and it's going to put me off, so let's come back to the witchy reading project once I've changed my battery. Great news, this battery isn't charged either, but we move. So yeah, as I said, over on Instagram I've been doing a witchy reading project whereby I've been reading some witchy books throughout the month of October and into November, because I'll be reviewing the last one this weekend. And the first one I read was Garlic and the Witch by Brie Paulson, which is a sequel apparently, or accompaniment to Garlic and the Vampire. This is a graphic novel, which I had such a lovely cozy time reading. I read the whole thing in the bath. My niece is going to love this, and we're following this character Garlic and the witch that has created Garlic, and there's lots of sort of feelings and characters and warmth and coziness, and I had a really, really good time reading it, so would highly recommend for this time of year, but any time of year for warmth. So yeah, so that is going over to my niece. I'm going to put that in the, not in the Katabasis pile, because that's going straight to the community library. Somebody else will enjoy that, not me. And then the 5-star read of the month was a reread. I reread Northern Lights by Philip Pullman, and I'm currently rereading The Subtle Knife by Philip Pullman, because I'm working my way through the Book of Dust and the His Dark Materials books in chronological order ahead of the last Book of Dust book being out now. I've got high hopes for it. The second one was not good. And yeah, there was some sort of things that Philip said that didn't make sense to me about what happened between Will and Lyra. But I'm having such a lovely time re-listening to it. And the audiobooks that I've got have got a full cast narration. And then Philip himself, look at me, Phil himself, he narrates them. So yeah, they're a great thing to have, and I love coming back to them every so often. So yeah, it was 5 stars, as it always is. Next one was a reread of a Daphne du Maurier book, and it was Frenchman's Creek. I've got it here. We read it for my book club at the library that I've recently joined for the Women's Institute, and I loved this. I loved this the first time round. This was like the 3rd Daphne du Maurier I read, I think. I bought a set which had Jamaica in, Rebecca and Frenchman's Creek. And I read Jamaica in first, thought this will be my favourite, then read Rebecca, and predictably it was my favourite. And then this was just good fun. This is very different to other sort of Daphne du Maurier stuff. There's sort of lots of hijinks, and it's about a pirate who's living in a creek nearby where this woman Donna St. Colombe is living. She's escaped down to the country. It's my husband outside. She's escaped down to the country she's having sort of like marital strife, and she's escaped down there, and she comes into contact with this pirate, and it's all sort of like adventure and lots of nature drawing and talking about eating food out on the deck and stuff like that. And it's a romance as well, and a very sort of like sexy, tense romance without sex once being mentioned. So yeah, it was very well received sort of overall, but some people found it a bit fantastical, but I didn't find it fantastical at all. I just loved it. So yeah, this is great. If you've read a lot of Daphne du Maurier and you're looking for something a little bit different, then do go here. But I enjoyed this even more the second time round. I had a bloody brilliant time reading it, so that's got to go back up with my Daphne du Maurier favourites. And then I read on my Kindle The God of the Woods by Liz Moore, which is, I've never read any Liz Moore before, and for many years I can't remember what that one's called. Hello, my love.
Hi.
I'm just filming and then I'll be ready for the library. I can't remember, The Unseen World. I had the proof copy of that I'd got, and then never got around to reading it, and actually got rid of it. And now I've read The God of the Woods, I thought, bloody hell, I wish I'd kept hold of The Unseen World. So I will read more Liz Moore, which will make you realise that I enjoyed the book. So The God of the Woods is about a children's camp in America, one of those, they don't sort of have them here in the UK, but a residential camp, and from that camp 2 children have gone missing at different times, and you're looking into the cases of how those children went missing and what became of those children, and then again like supporting people around and things like that and what's been going on. I found it tense, I did find it mysterious, and I just really enjoyed it. It really kept me engaged, particularly like it was nice to read Frenchman's Creek and then God of the Woods back to back, because I'd had a sort of like dicey time reading stuff at the beginning of the month, but I was very, very engaged with these 2. So yeah, would highly recommend. But if you are a reader and a lover of Liz Moore, then do let me know where to go to next. The next 2 books were witchy books, and one was a reread. So Hedgewitch was a reread by Skye McKenna, and then I read Woodwitch by Skye McKenna for the witchy reading project I was doing. So I loved Hedgewitch when I read it last year, but on rereading it this year, I listened to it this year rather than read it, and I didn't have as much of a good time with it as I did. However, I loved Woodwitch, so I think maybe these are, like when I come to them for the first time, have a great time with them. This was particularly sort of autumnal, mushrooms, woods, crunchy leaves and all that sort of thing, and it follows on very well from Hedgewitch in that sort of camaraderie is built upon and friendships are built upon, and divides are made more divisive, and yeah, you're getting to know the characters. I was delighted to learn that there's actually going to be 4 books in this series. So I also have Sea Witch that I hope to read this autumn, so hopefully I'll get to that by the time my Christmas reading starts. But there's also a 4th book out now called Stone Witch, so I will definitely continue with the series, but maybe I'll just pick up from where I left on rather than go back to them if I didn't enjoy Hedgewitch as much on the reread. So there we go. My sister is also currently reading Woodwitch, having read Hedgewitch last year. She didn't have to reread it because she's big grown up and she can go straight onto another book. So there we go. They will go back on the shelf maybe. Or would my niece like these? I mean, they're maybe she loves a chapter book, but maybe they're a little bit too old for her at the moment. We pop them down there, and then I listened to, disappointingly so, Queen Bee by Juno Dawson. So you'll know that Her Majesty's Royal Coven, the series about witches by Juno Dawson, is a great series and one of my faves. Like, and the last book in that series has come out, and I'm actually going to listen to it very soon, but I wanted to re-listen to all of the series. They're narrated by Nicola Coughlan, and they just, yeah, they're just brilliant. Like, they're really adventurous and cool, and just reminds me of like reading about the Spice Girls and stuff like that. Like, Juno and I are the same age and have a lot of the same cultural references. Buffy, Spice Girls, Quavers, maybe not Quavers, but when I think of those things, I think of eating Quavers in the 90s. Yeah, but this is like a sort of novella that sort of gets inserted between book 2 and 3 to eke it out a little bit more, and it's about Anne Boleyn and her court and the witches in her court. And sure, you'd think, bloody hell, Lauren, that sounds like something you'd like, but guys, it is just not good. I haven't got much more to say on it apart from it's just not good. It's hard to follow. The Then and Here series, the Then and Now series is very like the way it's written is very confusing. A lot of the characters have similar names. There's just no interest in it, which is unbelievable considering how much I love the other books. And I'm sure I'll love the 3rd book. So yeah, but yeah, disappointing, but there we go. And then Dangerous Girls was another witchy book I read for my witchy reading project. And I really enjoyed this as well. This sort of reminded me of like reading in the 90s or the noughties. It felt a little bit like a point horror. You're following a young girl, Imogen, who has been sent away to this island off the coast of Scotland because she has a gift that she cannot control, and that gift is growing flowers out of her hands, poisonous flowers. And she goes to this island where there's lots of other young women who also have gifts that they are learning to control. And what I liked about this is that it's not all like sunshine and everyone's having a good time. Like, there's ag because there's a group of teenage girls who don't know each other all being thrown together on the same island, and they don't all get on. So there's that going on, and then there's some sort of like mysterious stuff going on which is upsetting various young girls and people on the island, and yeah, there's just quite a lot to follow, but it's very plotty. There's a slow burn romance in there, and I love reading about people's powers. When people have special powers, I'm like, well, tell me, what's her power? Well, what's her power? So yeah, I really like that. This only came out this year. This is a proof copy, but yeah, perfect for this time of year. Perfect. And then I listened to, oh god, this was such a surprise, and I had such a good time reading this. It was the Patreon book club book we read this month. It was No Place Like Home by Charlene White. And Charlene White is a journalist and a TV presenter here in the UK, and for Patreon book club this month we pick a different theme every month, and it was sort of like a double theme this month because it's UK Black History Month, and we'd been saying we wanted to read a memoir, so I picked 2 memoirs from Black British females, and this was the one that won. And I was a bit dubious about how it would go down because Charlene White is from the UK. I have a lot of people on my Patreon who are not from the UK, and I didn't know if the references would be a little bit too UK-ish, but not at all. Like, I loved it. Not everybody loved it, guys, on Patreon book club, but I really loved this. It's separated between a memoir about Charlene's life and coming up, being brought up, sort of knowing that Jamaica was a big part of her life, having not been born in Jamaica. Her parents are born in Jamaica, and she considers Jamaica to be home despite not being born there, and that home means all different things like food and memories and things like that. And there was lovely bits in there about Charlene returning home to Jamaica, but also really interesting stuff about living in the Midlands and not being able to get her hair done as a black woman and having to travel to London to do that, and all sorts of like experiences as a black woman living in the UK now, and how things are sort of slowly coming along. We say slowly coming along, but also there's loads of interviews in there which I was really interested in because Charlene is a journalist, about various people and their sense of home. So we've got some people from the Ukraine who had to leave Ukraine when the war started and are now living in the UK. We've got a friend of hers called Chris who spent some of his childhood in care. That particular interview was horrifying, and I honestly don't think I'll ever forget it. And yeah, some really awful stuff happened to Chris, and how he's managed to sort of continue his life in the way that he had with sort of joy and things was just unbelievable. But yeah, it was just, I found it so interesting, and I learned a lot, and I sort of ate it up. I ate it up. There's loads in there about food, which I will eat up. But yeah, I very much enjoyed that. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, would highly recommend, actually. Would highly recommend. And then the last book, which like I said, I've got 10 pages of this left. This is The Parallel Path, Love, Grit and Walk in the North by Jen Ashworth. And this is the story of Jen, who is a writer, mainly of fiction. I've read fiction of hers before. Walking the coast-to-coast path up north in the north of England. And it follows her journey sort of day by day, and at the same time as her walking this path, she's receiving letters from a friend of hers who is dying of cancer. His name is Clive, and so she's reading these letters and reflecting upon her life as well as his life, and wanted to do this walk for him. She's also had like the father of her daughter died quite young and suddenly, and she thinks a lot about him. So there's a lot of reflections in here about death and about illness, which I don't love reading about, to be honest. It makes me feel a bit sad. Like, I know these things happen, I know they happen, but yeah, like when I'm reading things like that, it does make me feel a bit sad, and that was sort of mixed with really enjoying the bits about walking and hearing her talking about her trainers and her socks, and getting into a bath after a long walk, and these 3-course breakfasts she was having in order to be able to walk 23 miles across a moor and things like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed those bits, but the sad bits I sort of struggled through. But I would recommend, and as I'm into sort of reading books about walking, being quite a keen walker myself. Yeah, enjoyed. 10 pages left, we'll say I read it. So there we go. Those are the 15 books that I've read in the month of October. Do let me know what you have read in October. Would be very interesting if you've read any of these books here. And I'll see you all again soon for another BookTube video. Goodbye!